Welcome back, everyone, to Supercharge with Dr. V. Before we start the week off, I just want to say a big thank you for all of your support. I'm really glad that you're enjoying the content, so please keep sharing it with your friends and family. And you can also let me know if you have feedback on previous posts or even suggestions for future ones. Now, this week, I want to talk about how our childhood affects the rest of our lives. Being a kid is a special time in our lives. We're learning and experimenting with the world around us. Our brains and bodies are growing at their fastest rate, and we're understanding how we fit into this world. Now, it's important for children to be growing in the right environment, and that environment is one that gives them the resources to grow as much as they can, but that also keeps them away of things that may hinder their growth. Now, as a doctor, child development is super important because it has so many downstream effects in the future. And that's why today I want to talk about how what kids hear in the house affects their development. Now, if you don't have kids, I urge you to still continue listening because these simple concepts can apply to anyone at any age. The words that are spoken inside the house can have a huge impact on child development. Let me tell you about a research study that Hart and Risley did. For more than 3 years, they recorded the conversations in households of parents and children. And those families fell into one of 3 socioeconomic categories. Either families on welfare, families that are working class, or families where the parents are professionals. They studied the number of words that were spoken in these homes, and the results were astonishing. The researchers found that children from professional families heard over 2,100 words an hour. The children from working class families heard over 1,200 words an hour, while children from families on welfare only heard about 600 words per hour. Now look at that gap. In just 1 year, the word gap between the working class families and the professional families were 8 million words. And if you look at that word gap by age 3, then the word gap becomes over 30 million words heard. But the interesting thing here is that it wasn't just the number of words that mattered. The quality and the context mattered just as much. The children from professional families heard twice as many unique words, and they were twice as likely to have encouraging rather than discouraging conversations. For example, an encouraging conversation is when a parent says, "What did you think of that?" And a discouraging conversation is, "Don't touch that." In just the first 4 years after birth, children from professional families hear about 560,000 more encouraging statements than discouraging ones. A child from a working class family hears 100,000 more encouragements than discouragements. And a child from welfare actually hears 125,000 more discouragements than encouragements. Other studies have looked at how many turns parents take when conversing with their child. When you look at the parents of children who score the highest on preschool language tests and IQ tests, those parents, on average, take 18 more turns per hour in conversations with their children compared to those who score on the bottom 80% on those tests. And this is why this matters. At the end of Hart and Risley's study, about 85% of a child's conversational patterns, their vocabulary, and their speaking style comes from their families. By just age 3, the children from professional families had twice the vocabulary that children from welfare families had. Now, besides being able to brag about your vocabulary, this is super important in a child's development. It plays a huge role in how children perform in school, how they regulate their emotions, and even how they interpret the world around them. Now, I didn't share this with you to tell you the differences between the socioeconomic groups, because you could be from a professional family and still speak discouraging words or even less words. And at the same time, you could be from a welfare family and create a rich home environment for your kids to be raised in. And that's why I think this is a learning lesson for everyone that interacts with kids. You don't have to come from a high socioeconomic status to raise smart or successful kids. But supporting your children, giving them encouraging feedback, and taking more turns while talking to them can really make an impact on their development. So the question is, how do you do this? Reading out loud is the best way that you can increase a child's word mastery and grammatical understanding. Did you know that picture books are 2 to 3 times more likely to start a conversation between a parent and a child, where they use a word that isn't among the 5,000 most common words in English that we use in daily conversation? You see, that's why I liked the picture books when I was younger. And to foster better conversations, you can even play certain games with your child if reading doesn't work out. Now, before you say, "I don't have a kid, this doesn't apply to me," just think about it for a moment. These experiments show us the power that words have in creating a positive and encouraging, enriching home environment. The words that come out of our mouths clearly have an impact on the world around us. And so it doesn't matter if you're talking to a 2-year-old, a 22-year-old, or a 62-year-old. We have to be mindful of what we are saying, how we are saying it, and if we're being encouraging rather than discouraging. If we all do this, I'm sure that we won't only set up our children for success, we'll set up ourselves and everyone around us. See you next time.